Welcome to Mail. I'm Suresh Venkat. On today's episode, we continue our chat with strategy expert and the author of Lilliput Land, Rama Bijapurkar. In this episode, we talk about her skepticism around the definitions of the great Indian middle class, how digital could be the solution for today's monster consumer, and tips for the CEO of tomorrow. Rama, one of the things that you argue for is scaling to deliver products at what you call the price performance point. You need scale. So we need large scale companies in India that manufacture products at a large scale and distribute them at a large scale. But here's the problem. The larger you are, the harder it becomes to listen to a consumer because you are now a large bureaucracy. I know you advise a lot of large companies. How can a company achieve, say, pan-national scale and yet be humble enough to listen to a consumer?
There are companies that do that, like Hindustan, now Unilever, Hindustan Lever, as I was growing up and cutting my teeth. I mean, I think they really, really listen to consumers. There are companies that do. But looping back, it is possible to be, in fact, the smaller companies are extremely customer-centric because they're so close to the consumer. Unfortunately, they need to scale because otherwise you don't make enough money, to plow it back in order to serve your customer better, and that's really why we need scale. Large companies, it's cultural, where every time I talk about customer centricity, I think about the company having an intravenous drip of customer centricity. So that is dripping through your veins. So as a result of it, no matter what you do, you are thinking on behalf of the consumer and saying, does it add value to the consumer or does it not? So if you believe, again, it's a mindset thing that if the dharma of business, which it is to add value to your consumer and to extract value from your consumer. So if you continue to say, am I adding value to the consumer as the consumer perceives it, it will keep you straight and it will keep you humble.
And one of your earlier books is called The Customer in the Boardroom.
Customer in the Boardroom,
I know you serve on a lot of very high profile boards. Are you the customer in the boardroom? Or the voice of the customer in the boardroom?
I am the representative for customer centricity in the boardroom, where I will always say, if this is what you're doing, explain to me how it will help you create more value to the consumer and extract value. That is also the title of the course that I teach at Ahmedabad. It's called, I haven't taught it for a couple of years now, but it's called Customer-Based Business Strategy. So one of the questions I often ask is, on which page of your strategy document does the word customer first appear? And other than other than the mission statement that we want to delight the customer, God knows when the customer thing comes in. Or I tell companies that, can you make a presentation to me without using the word product? Just tell me about your customers. Tell me where your money comes from. Tell me how when you say I want top line growth, top line growth is not an arithmetic number. It is getting more people to spend more instead of somebody else for you. So tell me who these people are. So it's putting people first.
Now, to complicate matters further, we have, and I'm quoting you from your book, you have monster consumers. Now, these people are low ticket size, high expectations of product and delivery, and perhaps remotely located. Now, is this where MNCs tend to fail, where Indian companies succeed with these monster consumers?
I think everybody struggles with monster consumers unless you're priced like Chinese goods when they come in. But even then, monster consumers, I saw a lovely WhatsApp picture of a cartoon of someone trying to commit suicide. And the title says made in China, and the rope breaks and the stool breaks. So that's the consumer being me.
Gallows humor, literally.
Literally, yes. So it is hard, and I think the fact that a lot of companies say to me, doesn't the consumer know his place or her place? And I'm saying, look at us, over the last 20 or the first 20 years after liberalization or even more, the price of everything went down and the quality of everything went up, if you remember, because taxes went away and competition came in and we very quickly upgraded products. So that is our lived experience. Then came Chinese goods, which were actually quite interesting. All the battery operated diyas and so on, and saris at 100 rupees and 200 rupees, clothes, shoes, everything, you name it. Those were so cheap and so much better than what we'd seen in that income group. Then that went away, and then came e-commerce. For the first time, we've learned you can return anything you like. I mean, when have you ever been able to go back and return it unless you were best buddies with the shopkeeper? So we've just been spoiled. Everywhere else in the world, high touch went out and high tech came in. For us, high tech came in along with high touch, and we're, recognize me in the bank branch, recognize me outside, recognize me on the computer. So we are a little bit monstrous. So it's not the supplier's fault, but it is the way the consumer has been,
all the goodies now,
has been educated, right? It's just that point in time which is wonderful for one lot and not for the other. And then came digital, which again crash costs on so many counts. So companies are having a little bit of trouble, I think, stomaching that. But our consumers just going to get more monstrous over time and not any better.
That phrase seems to get your goat in the book as well. We need to educate our customer.
Oh God, yes.
I assume you've heard this in many meetings and many boardrooms.
Yes.
And this seems to irk you quite a bit. Why so?
Well, it irks me because I know that if you put it back into my customer value framework, if your customer is processing value and saying you are not paisa vasool, and you say, I don't care, we have ways to make you listen to us, then I say that you can educate all you like, but it's like Mother Teresa. I mean, you will be dead, you'll be canonized as a saint for sure, and you'll be 84 years old.
And you've said
how long?
Customer education is thinly veiled euphemism for bombarding the customer with messages or bullying them into submission.
Or for believing that if you throw money at the problem, then they will suddenly change. So you can either change the way they process value, or you can change the value offering you have. Or you can teach them. When you say, I will teach you to process value better, you're saying that maybe there are things you don't know. So I will explain it to you so that the algorithm in your head automatically changes. But if the consumer is saying, I know this doesn't create value for me, and you're saying, no, I'm telling you it does. If the consumer is saying, I want to send my kid to medical college with capitation fee and I do not want to buy a branded handbag, you say, no, I will teach you to have respect for brands. How does that work?
Is that unique to India, the fact that medical education competes with handbags? And your book, you also say sometimes it competes with living with the problem of not doing anything or not buying anything.
Yeah.
Is this unique to the Indian consumer, or is it a global phenomenon?
It is, inter-category competition happens everywhere. I think it is more unique for us because we suddenly have an explosion of things to do, and our incomes have not exploded to that extent. We also have what a young man called Akhilesh Tilothia has written in his book. He calls it the private cost of public goods, right? So when you have weak public goods, so for example, if you don't have very nice public transport, then you're taking an auto rickshaw to the nearest place, and then from there you're taking another.
Or buying a fancy SUV if you're in the top 1% or 10%.
Yeah, if you're in the top 1%, 10%, yes, buying a fancy SUV, but you're really, especially more if you're modest income, and if you're richer, actually, I mean, the definition of being rich also in India is to not have to access any of the free public goods of any kind, right? So we're paying for water, we're paying for electricity, we're paying for shortages of everything, we're paying for bad schooling, we're paying for a lot of these things. So that is, I think, unique a little bit to us.
Okay.
Getting better.
Okay. Rama, I've been reading and listening to you for about 20 years now. And for 20 years, you've been extremely, again, skeptical about this term, this great Indian middle class. At one point of time, we said it's 300 million strong, and this is going to be the base that's going to consume all products and services and shoes and airplane tickets and everything else. And somehow that hasn't panned out. And you've been a skeptic of this. So can you tell us, for those of us who are saying that especially marketers who are saying, my target is the average middle class person. What is the average middle class person in India?
The middle class, yes, I have been writing a lot of late as well, where I'm saying that it's not the typical definition of the middle class is between income X and income Y, and the definition change between X and Y is almost a factor of 10. So it includes my driver and his household helper wife, as well as the graduating class that isn't going to investment banks and consults of a good management school. So I started asking what really is the reason why we look at the middle class, and I work with an economist called Yuval Hedrick Wong, who reminded me that there is a lot of literature on what defines a middle class, and I think you need resilience of income, you need predictability of income, you need to have the skills that give you that. You need to have surplus income so that you can invest it back in your children and give them social mobility. So I started applying all those factors. And as you know, our occupation, how India earns is really not very are not very happy because a lot of it is informal, which really means you have no predictability of whether you're going to earn or not going to earn. So when I put all these criteria together, I find that the top 20% of India, if that, is really qualifies for what would be a middle class. I also have a number in my book that says if you look at people who have washing machines plus air conditioners plus laptops plus cars, it's a grand total of 4.5 million households multiplied by 4.5, 5 people, let's say. That's a very small number. On the other hand, if you're willing to look at middle class as the Indian middle class as having two-wheelers, as having refrigerators, and one other gadget that I can't remember just now, then you go up to as much as 100 million. So the truth, so rather than talk about a middle class, which is not someone in the middle, but if you look at a middle class by these criteria, then I would reckon it would be about 200 million people. But about again, 20% of the top
again, you have to
tier
use
households.
what your quintile method of defining these
that's
people.
one way of doing it. Or use durables. I mean, say that people who own this, but you can't be looking London, going Tokyo. In your head, you want a particular number. The reality is something else. So that's why I find that this whole middle class hype is hype.
There's something quirky about us Indians. I'm fairly certain I come from the top 10%. But I'd like to say I'm a nice middle class person. Right?
Yeah,
it's like morality attached to saying I have middle class values towards spending, towards thrift, towards those things.
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
Does that skew marketers' understanding as well, that the people are self-confessed middle class values or so-called middle class values?
Well, since the whole country is middle class, I often feel like saying, and I do say that just as sometimes in a class you say, let's give everybody an A and then get on with learning. I think let's just call all of India middle class and then get on to targeting. Let's just take the discussion off the table and leave it for foreign media to talk about.
Another curious metaphor that you use is women's clothing to describe the changing Indian consumer. What about women's clothing serves as a metaphor for changing Indian consumers?
Indian consumers change we change in a morphing way. It's like an amoeba. Every little bit of something you ingest, it takes on a different shape. We don't change in a molting way like a snake where the skin is wrapped around a tree and hey presto, you have a new skin. So when I start looking at have all women started wearing trousers and tops? Our top has become a little longer. It's called the kurti. And the kurti is actually fills our ideas of modesty. And I often think if you're
it's just Indian enough to be.
If you're a denim manufacturer, you should actually make sure the kurti doesn't die, so all of us can wear jean pant. Well, not me, I'm too old, but everybody who's young and not part of the extreme upper echelon. I'm often looking at saris and I'm thinking the sari maybe hasn't changed, but the blouses, oh my God, they've changed so much. I mean, they're off the shoulder, they're single shoulder, they're glitter, they're sequined. So where, and again, it's typical India, where you expect to see change, you don't see it, you see it somewhere else. So I keep looking at women's clothing and I'm saying, or again, if you look at all of South India now wears what we call Punjabi dress, which is again the more convenient version. So it's our version of pant shirt, right? And I haven't seen anybody wearing dupattas in a long time. So that's modernity.
So these are some of the ways in which the Indian woman consumer is changing, and that could be a sort of
it's not moving.
metaphor.
It's not going to Western clothes. It's somewhere in between. It's somewhere fusion. It's somewhere a little bit more relaxed in terms of rules.
Another term that you use in your book is jugaad and frugal engineering. Once upon a time, jugaad was slightly patronizing. It's nice that Indians are so cutely fashioning refrigerators out of mud, or it had a cutesy air to it and slightly patronizing air. Then came the nano and frugal engineering, saying, man, you can actually produce a car in this price. This is no longer cutesy. This is serious business. Now, the nano obviously didn't work for other reasons. But has India definitively moved on beyond this jugaad description of innovation? Are we in the era of systematic innovation?
We Indians create a caste system out of everything. So there is jugaad, there is frugal engineering. If you came from, I think a lot of Westerners who wrote about it didn't have the cultural label of what jugaad was. For us, there is a certain cultural label attached. I mean, it's often like you find that if you have children-in-laws from a different culture, they have no problem touching feet because there's no cultural label attached to it, right? Whereas maybe our own children will say, I'm not sure I want to touch everybody's feet anymore. So similarly, I think whether it's jugaad, the pejorativeness of jugaad, I think was something that we attached ourselves, but innovation is innovation, and I think we innovate the big stuff, we innovate the small stuff. If you look at what a lot of IITs are doing today, I mean, I think the innovation, whether it's in biogenetics, whether it's in other forms of engineering, is absolutely terrific. So,
Okay.
yeah, so no caste system.
All right.
Anything that creates value and unleashes value is.
Staying on the theme of innovation, now we have multiple tested digital business models, both from the government and the private sector. We might be one of the few countries where the government is innovating as fast as the private sector. You have many references to these in your book, from Elastic Run to UPI to the COVID vaccination program. What's the likely supply on this innovation ecosystem on both supply and demand? How is it going to change for people?
So one is that consumer India has embraced digital wholeheartedly for many reasons. And often when people ask me, is India ready for digital? I say the minute our temples went digital, I mean, it's a done deal. You need an OTP during COVID to go to a temple, right? You can pay the Lord through Paytm, and you can get cyber darshans all the time from any temple you like.
There
in
are
this
these
country.
images in Bangalore of these guys who take cows and go around, and the cow has a QR code on the side. And if you'd like to donate, you can just scan the cow.
I've seen that as well. So, and also I think technology gives you status blind service. So, if my maid and I both book a gas cylinder using the IVR at exactly the same time, she's going to get it earlier if she did it earlier, and there's no way I can change it. We saw the same thing for COVID vaccines as well. I could go to a primary health center. She could go to Breach Candy, and you just get the job done. So I think that's where that side, the response on this side has been quite phenomenal actually, because I analyzed about the 100 unicorns we have. Some have fallen off, and another 50, 60 unicorns. And I soon realized that the big problem with serving India, all the problems we've been talking about so far, is the consumer wants high performance, low price, and the supplier wants good profit. How do you square the circle? And suddenly digital business models have given us a way to do it. Because what you do is you aggregate small suppliers, whether it's cloud kitchens, or if you look at Urban Company, or if you look at any of the examples I have in the book, you're basically aggregating the small guys on the supply side. You're aggregating the small consumers so that you get ticket sizes that are decent. And you're yoking everybody through small digital transactions, which we've now learned how to do. We also have the sharing economy. Imagine doing Uber or renting tractors or even party gowns without the digital thing. It would be so ineffective to actually sweat that asset. So we're also enabling sharing of high value items. So it has actually, as a model, solved the problem of price, performance and profit. And also if you digitalize all your processes, your costs crash. Today you can do KYC so cheap, right? You can do the whole rural banking model. No one is saying, oh, where are my cost income ratios don't work. So I think those are the keys that crack this really difficult market, and I think that is the future of the way we're going to be.
So that's the Lilliput consumer and the Lilliput supply coming together enabled by
maybe a Gulliver platform.
A Gulliver digital platform.
Yeah.
Now you've spoken about the B2B platforms, the B2C platforms, and the B2B2C platforms, as it were. Could this be the way to unlock supply for the Indian market in the years to come? Is this going to be one of the key levers?
I think so. I think these three, aggregating demand, aggregating supply, digitalizing processes, I think these are the magic keys. And we already have the small suppliers, we already have the small buyers, so it fits much more with our rhythm and DNA. And I think Amazon is a fantastic example of all the small suppliers and stuff you never knew were made in the countries available. If you look at marketplaces, whether it's for construction equipment or whether it's for services, if you look at Urban Company, again, the challenge is on the supply side. You have to get the right kind of people, you have to get them trained, demand is ready. And my point is that the models are clear, they're market tested, you know that they work. Now the question is to fund them until to get to a scale where they start making money. And that's where we ought to be nurturing it and nourishing it and not raising telecom rates in a hurry, though the telecom companies will kill me for saying it, but there we go.
In spite of seemingly endless consumer demand, we seem to have not monopolies, but duopolies in many categories. Let's say Amazon, Flipkart, Swiggy, Zomato, Ola, Uber. Why aren't these categories seeing an explosion of players? Why two?
I've also wondered the same thing. I mean, In the India, I used to know if you had a Nika, you'd have had a Paika, Taika, Daika, Vaika. But why
And just
are
as
we
you have
not?
Crawford Market, you have 30 other markets in the city
Yeah,
of Mumbai.
in the city of Mumbai, exactly. And I have often wondered that why do we not have another 6 urban companies? I mean, why do we not have an urban company in every city that caters to that city? We are seeing some more hyper locals, so maybe we're not seeing the full picture. But yeah, I've often wondered, and I wonder whether it is to do with access to funding.
Is it capital that is the moat, and there people are not able to cross that moat?
I'm not sure it is the death of animal spirits, because we've got so many young people, and there is a lot of copying and emulating and that kind of animal spirits that we also have. So I have a feeling it's probably access to capital. But yeah, this is something I've wondered about as well. So
Final question to you, Rama. You're famous for your sari collection, right?
Am I?
And if you were to build a national sari brand or a sari empire, I know Titan is trying to do that with Tanera. But if you were to build a sari brand, and what would be the cornerstone of your go-to-market or consumer strategy?
Firstly, I would look at whether it is relevant at all anymore. I mean, if nobody wants to wear saris, if there is no market for saris, if young men don't admire young women in saris, yes, exactly. So I would first test that. I think the answer is that there is desire. I would then look at what's stopping it. I really am looking at market expansion, and I think there are 2 things that are stopping it. I think a lot about things that I don't do anything about. But one is just such a pain in the neck to get blouses stitched. So I think young people are liberating us now. They're wearing crop tops. They don't have to match. The tyranny of matching is gone. But I would actually start looking at how to do ready-to-wear stitched saris. I know the joy of a sari is the unstitched nature.
Mm-hmm.
But at least I would start trying to.
Sari purists are watching the show are
Sari
completely. Purists
are watching the show.
I'm getting upset with you right now.
I would say lighten up. What is our goal? Our goal is to have with my mantra to add value and extract value. We have to make it easier for young women and men, if they choose to wear the saris, and we need to extract value from it. So I think one thing is no sari draping classes. Just do small, medium, large, 5 pleats, 4 pleats, 6 pleats. I've thought about this, and services that will, if you can go to a sari shop and say, I like this and I like this and I like this, and can you just get it tailored to my size? I think we're good to go. I also keep writing to everybody who's in the knit business saying, can you please give us multiple kinds of blouses that we can wear that are comfortable in summer and so on. I see again that there are some small suppliers who are doing absolutely interesting, innovative stuff. But again, I don't see any large person doing it. So that's what I would do.
Well, on that note, we come to the end of this interview. Once again, thank you, Rama, for being on Melt.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Suresh.
Thank you.
Lovely to be here. Thank you.
With that, it's a wrap on this episode of Melt. Keep following Melt on social media. The handle is Ready to Melt, or simply log on to readytomelt.com. If you'd like to follow me, I'm @Suvenk on X. Till next week, goodbye and thanks for watching.